European leaders held their latest set of crisis talks in Brussels today as the bloc scrambles to adjust to the new world order since Donald Trump returned to the White House. Top of the agenda, boosting defence spending and support for Ukraine in its struggle against Russian aggression. The Trump administration's decision to pause aid to Ukraine and its demand that Europe do more for its own security have been fueling growing fears that the US could abandon the transatlantic alliance. Today, Ukraine's former army chief and current ambassador to the UK issued a blunt warning.
Washington is already trying to shift the burden of Europe's security to European forces without the United States of America. Such moves probably give rise to the assumption that NATO may cease to exist in the near future. It is no longer just Russia and its allies that are trying to destroy the world order. The United States of America is actually destroying it completely.
Well, Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelenskyy was back in Brussels today to attend that emergency summit. Going into the talks, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen underscored the urgency of stepping up and again pledged firm support for Kyiv.
This is a watershed moment for Europe. And Ukraine, as part of our European family, it's also a watershed moment for Ukraine. Europe faces a clear and present danger. And therefore, Europe has to be able to protect itself, to defend itself, as we have to put Ukraine in a position to protect itself and to push for a lasting and just peace.
I want to thank all our European leaders, first of all, and for such signal, strong support. This comes on strong support from the very beginning of the war, and what's been during all this period and last week. You stay with us, and of course from all the Ukrainians, from all our nations, big appreciation. We are very thankful that we are not alone.
Well, let's take a closer look at this with Pavlo Klimkin, who was Ukraine's foreign minister from 2014 to 2019. Welcome to DW. Lots of warm words from Ursula von der Leyen for Ukraine at today's meeting in Brussels. What concrete action would you like to see come from this meeting?
Not just good discussions, which have been there, but something which goes beyond statements. Deeds, concrete plans, something which would define Ukrainian security as part of the European security, but not something which is just not part of Europe. Secondly, a clear decision about European deterrence. And I believe there should have been discussions about European nuclear deterrence. Maybe not public, but still. There should have been discussions about European missile and air defense shield. There should have been discussions about stepping up with weapon R&D and productions. And fundamentally, in this world, Europe has to rely on itself. And I believe that here, Ukraine should be an integral part of Europe.
Okay.
Not only
so that's quite the shopping list.
Union.
That's quite the shopping list. Let's just start with reality. Do you believe that Europe will really follow through on its promises to defend itself and indeed Ukraine without the United States? Do you believe that it will do this?
Yes, I do. And the reason for that is that Europe does not have any other choice now. It's pretty clear.
How damaging has Donald Trump's withdrawal of military and intelligence assistance from your country been?
Yes, it's a fundamental choice, but it's not an existential one because we are able to produce more here in Ukraine. We are probably one of the best in the world on drones, on different technologies, including AR-powered drones. Of course, we can produce a kind of Patriot system or F-35 system, F-35 plane, but it's also about Europe to step in and reimburse for the lack of U.S. assistance. It's
All right,
a fundamentally
do you
important
believe
political
that,
message now.
and military assistance to one side, what about the intelligence assistance? Do you believe that Europe has the intelligence capability to fill the hole left by the United States?
Yes, not now, but tomorrow Europe has to develop such capabilities. And it's doable, and it should be done for Ukraine and for Europe.
I want you to listen to Donald Trump's special envoy to your country and Russia, General Keith Kellogg. He's talking about why the US cut you off, and we'll listen to him and then get your reaction.
The best way I can describe it is sort of like hitting a mule with a 2x4 across the nose. You got their attention, and it is significant, obviously, because of the support that we give.
Hitting a mule with a 2x4. Pavlo Klimkin, now that Washington has your complete attention, will Ukraine do as Washington tells you?
Well, it's about Ukraine, and it's about Russian aggression against Ukraine. And we should be an integral part of any future negotiations, because any sort of negotiations between Washington and Moscow would not lead to any credible solution.
Okay, that's a line. That's a line that we have heard many times, and it's a very reasonable line. You know, nothing about us without us. But that is not the world we are living in. That is not the world of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. So, again, do you do as the United States tells you, or do you live without their military and intelligence assistance?
No, it's not a sort of polite political line. We proved many people wrong in 2022, both in Moscow but also in Washington. And for us, it's existential, and we will find a way and strategy to go forward. US is important for us, and we will try everything to get US on board. But fundamentally, it's about us, and it's about Europe to find a way to go forward, to go ahead.
Part of the cost of the return of US military assistance is likely to include this deal that didn't get signed last Friday. So this is a deal that includes US access to Ukrainian minerals, a joint US-Ukraine investment fund, with Ukraine contributing 50% of future revenues made from the country's natural resources. And critically, no explicit US security guarantees. So I wonder, Pavlo, is this Donald Trump extorting Ukraine? Sign this deal or we remove your access to US military and intelligence assistance forever? Is this extortion?
I see it as two different tracks. The deal is important, and it should be a deal based on partnership, and it should be about US engaging more in Ukraine. But military assistance and intel and logistics and all kind of stuff is used now as a sort of leverage to get and to gain momentum on negotiations, because the US administration wants a ceasefire as quickly as possible, wants to turn the main buck of responsibility on Ukraine to Europe, and wants to have relations with the US. So I would not mix up this deal and military assistance. Not
You
at
think
all.
you think the two are completely separate? So, as a former foreign minister of Ukraine, if Volodymyr Zelenskyy asked for your opinion, should I sign this deal, Pavlo, what would you tell him?
I would sign yes, of course, because it's a kind of deal which would bring US into Ukraine, but it should be a deal based, as I've said, on partnership, based on clear idea how we cooperate.
Except we know that's not the case. The case seems to be that the US says, there it is, take it or leave it. You chose to leave it, and they took their toys away. So you don't really have a choice in this, do you?
No, take or leave it never worked with Ukraine and would never, ever work again. It should be a real deal between us as partners. I see no other way to be effective, both for Ukraine and for the United States.
So can Ukraine resist American pressure to do a deal with Russia, even under terms that favor Russia?
I mean, for us, it's existential, and the Russians will try to restrain our sovereignty on a number of areas, and not only territory.
No, that's understood.
And,
I understand it's existential, but I'm trying to get to the reality of your situation. The United States is pushing for this to end. Can you resist, excuse me, can you resist that US pressure and continue to fight without their backing?
Oh, it's not about resisting. If you have a wave, you need to surf on this wave, and you need to get best conditions you can get from this wave. And we understand that it's about US having leverage in negotiations with the Russians. So it's not about backing in on that, not at all. And it wouldn't be supported by the Ukrainian society.
Let's zoom out from what's happening in your country. We heard just before you came on from your country's ambassador to Britain that the United States is completely destroying the world order. Is he wrong?
The world order as we had it after the Second World War does not exist anymore. It's like in the famous Matrix movie. You live in a kind of comfortable reality, and if you have a look out, it's fundamentally wrong. I mean, US is destroying kind of decoration in the old theater, and we all understand that in 10 years from now, and maybe even quicker,
right,
we will live in a fundamentally different world.
And what did you think when you saw last Friday's explosive White House meeting between your president and Donald Trump?
Well, I expected emotions at this meeting, not like that. But I probably would have expected such emotions going around in a closed, non-public meeting. But what we saw is also a fundamental difference in how we want to approach it, in the sense of pace and in the sense of momentum. For us, what is critical is substance. For us, substance is existential.
Thank you so much for joining us and outlining that for us. Pavlo Klimkin, former Ukrainian foreign minister. Thank you so much.